Hello, everyone. On November the 4th, Saturn is turning direct. Before that, for 2 days, it's stationary. We usually say that it is stationary retrograde for one day, the next day is stationary direct, and then it goes forward. And as you probably know by now, stationary planets are very strong in their original meaning. And Saturn originally means boundaries, borders, burdens, baggages, all kinds of B letter words. And it rules the skin and the skeleton in the physical body and the spine and also the teeth. Very useful and important things in the physical body. And the ancients, because this was the last visible planet, they thought that he is ruling space and time, and behind it, there's chaos. So Saturn is something very important, but of course quite difficult as well. If you look at your horoscope and you take a look at where Saturn is, which house it is in, this house functions funnily, because you either altogether say, no, I can't do this, I'm not able to, I'm not, I'm not good enough, strong enough, learned enough, or industrious enough to even cope here. And then you just neglect this sphere of life, or you put a lot of energy and effort into it. And it's going to be very successful for you. The interesting thing is that it will be successful from the outside. So everyone may even envy you for how successful you are there, but you will always feel somehow small or incompetent, even though you put a lot of energy and effort into that sphere. And at the moment, you probably again know that Saturn is in Pisces, so it's ruled by Neptune. Interestingly enough, the two celestial objects will be moving into Aries in 2026 together. And that will show us a closure of these crazy times that we are in, because Neptune in its own sign is very strong. That's why you have so many crazy ideas flying around without reality check. And sometimes people who are very woke and very learned and very I'm not going to use any labels. So they who consider themselves very bright and liberal, they don't know how to reconcile certain things, and you see that all the time. That they believe in this and they believe in something else, and they don't realize that the two cannot be reconciled. You will see how this is panning out by 2026, unfortunately. Up till then, we are completely confused. We stay confused. And these ideologies, these often mutually exclusive ideologies will offset each other. And you will see all kinds of craziness going on. Saturn doesn't know how to behave in Neptune's sign. That's the problem, and is ruled by Neptune. So how can you structure steam? Of course, I know that in the Industrial Revolution, they had huge engines that were operated by steam, but this is different. Okay, here you want to structure something that is totally diffuse. If you consider Saturn-Neptune aspects, if it's a flowing aspect, if it's a sextile or a trine or any of the quintile series, it denotes the ability to take down a bright idea or a dream into the physical realm and create it in a physical form. So it's quite useful. But a square or an opposition often denotes a mini generation who have beautiful dreams but don't know how to realize them. And often that's why it is one of the main significators of illnesses. Because if you cannot fulfill your dreams, if you cannot manifest your dreams in a physical level, it can make you really sick. Here's the chart, and again, I did not make a separate chart for London. I'm just letting you know that I selected a certain moment in time simply because I I wanted to include the moon. And I just noticed that while Saturn is stationary retrograde on November the 3rd and then stationary direct on November the 4th, the moon will create a little engine with Sedna and Saturn. So that's why I use this space-time moment, which is at 9:21 London time, AM, of course, as it's at 10:21 Budapest, so you can actually calculate it for your place. It will be there. Now, little engines are not as productive as regular engines. A regular engine is made up by a trine, a square, and a quincunx. And these three aspects belong to three very different aspect families. You have a tension creating aspect, you have a flowing aspect, and you have a karmic aspect. But still, when you combine the three, they can be very productive because they denote the ability to carry heavy burdens, heavy weight, and be very successful. Here with the little engine, you don't have the trine, instead you have the sextile. First of all, it's a smaller configuration, so it is confined in less than half of the chart. The bigger a configuration is, the more productive it is, because it covers bigger space, so to speak. And the sextile gives you chances and potentials, but it doesn't really offset the tension of the square. The trine does. So actually, engines are a little bit more productive actually than little engines, because the trine in itself doesn't move at all. Trines have no energy, and squares could be very disruptive, but the combination of the two with the karmic situation of produced by the quincunx could be very productive. Little engines are less productive, but still here you have the Sedna, Saturn, mutable square. This has been there for ages. If you watch my video on prosperity and freedom and globalization, you probably know by now that Sedna, which means creation through dissection, and this is something it could be very productive, very beneficial in a personal natal chart, but also disruptive at the same time. On a global or a mundane level, I link this to the efforts of globalization, that we need to have this mass globalized population of the planet with one single government there. This is what they are planning to do. And Sedna is a vehicle for the deep state or the powers that be. Whenever they wanted to change mankind, this is what they did. They gave them some sort of ideology by which or through which they changed how everyone thought. And this is very, very successful for thousands of years. If you look at history from this viewpoint, you will be amazed how successful they always were. The issue here is different in a little bit, because now you have warring fractions. So the deep state is no longer completely homogeneous. You have fractions, and those are warring with each other. If you look at the big players, for instance, if you compare Elon Musk to George Soros to, let's say, the 101-year-old what's his name? I will remember his name. Anyhow, he's a big name in American history, in American politics. Not Brzezinski, the other one. I always mix them up for some reason. Anyhow, so these are people who think very differently from the world. Even if you just compare Soros with Elon Musk. Okay, Elon Musk just recently said about Soros that he's an evil person and he hates mankind, and I believe him completely. So finally, this kind of deep state is no longer totally homogeneous, and they have different ideas about how to reform mankind. So we might have hope about that as well. Okay, let's take a look at the transcendental objects in this little engine. The moon is conjunct Gaia, Saturn is conjunct Karma, And Saturn is conjunct Hungary, and the Pleiades. I'm not going to talk about Hungary here because obviously you couldn't care less. But of course, the Sedna-Pleiade conjunction, which is alignment really, will be there for another 2 years. So it's a very significant alignment, because Sedna's orbit is 11,500 years, and which means that it is aligned with the Pleiades only for every millennium, every 12 millennium. Think about this. And at the same time, the moon is very fast moving. In 2-3 hours, it will be coming out of this configuration. So the configuration itself will be falling apart, although Gaia will be there. And the Pleiades in karmic astrology, the whole constellation of the Pleiades, which is the smallest of the constellations, is the home of the creator goddess. And Gaia is a creator goddess for the Greeks, because out of the void of the chaotic void, all of a sudden Gaia emerges and then creates the whole world. So here you have this feminine energy of creativity, hopefully doing something. And what I usually do when I see such placements is that I search what else is there at 0 degrees of the signs. In Aries, there's Manve. We are going to talk about Manve in a minute. At 0 Gemini, you have the Sedna, Hungary, and the Pleiades. 0 Cancer, you have Arachne. Arachne is a mortal girl who can weave beautifully. But instead of thanking Pallas Athena for her abilities, she is revolting against this. And she says that she has gained her capacities and talent through a lot of practice and diligence and hard working, and she refuses to acknowledge that the gods have a say in the matter. So that's she's Arachne is one of the hubris asteroids. Hubris means revolt against the gods, and she's an interesting figure by all means. She kind of describes the feeling that, yes, I know what I'm worth, and I'm not going to cave in to the powers that be. We talked about Gaia and the moon in Leo, in the 0 degrees Leo. In Scorpio, you have Haumea, another TNO. She's a Hawaiian goddess of fertility, and she's constantly delivering children and then rejuvenating herself, and then again creating children with her own sons and grandsons. So on the one hand, it is this huge productivity, creativity, this abundant creativity. On the other hand, she is linked to the idea of being obsessed with youth and wanting all sorts of plastic surgery all the time. Michael Jackson had Haumea very prominent in his chart. In Capricorn 0 degrees, you have Eurydice, Tantalus, and Hermes. Eurydice is the wife of Orpheus, who dies and is in the underworld, and Orpheus tries to take her back, but is unable to do it. And so she belongs to the underworld. Let's put it this way. Tantalus also belongs to the underworld. He's pushed into the underworld by the gods when he actually sacrifices his own son to feed the gods, and they totally gross out of this, and so he gets there as a punishment. And then Hermes is the god who travels freely into the underworld. He's the psychopomp who is actually so you have a very complex idea of the underworld, of whatever is not being seen. And of course in Pisces you have Saturn and Karma. Lord of Karma is conjunct asteroid Karma. If we look at these celestial objects, let's see what configurations they are creating. And here you have, first of all, you have a tense trapeze. I have a very good eye for for such configurations. I have been dealing with them for 30 years. This is one of my favorite topics in astrology. I wrote 2 books on it. And here you have this tense trapeze and karmic, because inside you have 2 karmic aspects. One is the moon Saturn quincunx, and the other one is Haumea Sedna. The moon is always illuminating. So at the moment, the moon is highlighting and illuminating, first of all, Saturn. And also, of course, there's a Haumea moon fixed square, which means that this type of negative or too profuse creation is being highlighted. And if you look around in the world, what you see is that the military industrial complex is thriving. They are throwing more and more weapons to the world, and they are actually giving weapons in the hands of madmen, and that's what you're seeing here. And the base of the trapeze is Sedna Haumea trine. So at the same time, we could use this creative energy to create something more solid and workable. And the 2 squares, one is a fixed square and the other one is a mutable square, are the sides of the trapeze, how to get to the top. The top is always the stage, and here the stage is Sedna and moon. The moon will move out of this in 2-3 hours, but Gaia is staying there. So actually the Gaia Sedna sextile, which means that I need to recreate what's here. Yes, sometimes through dissection, acknowledging what is not working in our world and try to create something better and workable from the pieces, with the help of Gaia, the Earth Mother. So that's the top of the stage. And I would like to introduce a new configuration. I named it shield because it looks like a shield. Because if you add a harmony triangle and an angel wing to this karmic tense trapeze, then you get the shield. It is the form of a shield, really. And the angel wing is the tiniest of the configurations. At its apex, you have Arachne, who is proud of her own abilities and doesn't want to thank the gods for what she herself does. And this is something that we could actually use and utilize. Be sure of your own worth. Be sure of your own abilities and capacities, and don't allow anyone to take it from you. And on the other side, you have this triple underworld energy swirling there, which actually creates a harmony triangle with Saturn and Haumea. And if we look into the inner configurations within the shield, we will find a couple of new ones as well. First of all, there's a water ground trine. Actually, it's a water earth kite, of course, but we haven't spoken about the, because I'm looking now inside. So whatever is inside the shield, there's a water ground trine involving Arachne, Haumea, and Saturn karma. So you can actually, well, water is the least productive of the trines, because you can actually use it for huge emotional turmoil or empathy, but not really for any productive thing. But there it is. There's also a boomerang inside the shield involving Eurydice, Tantalus, and Hermes opposite Arachne. So talent is opposed to the underworld energies, and this angel wing is closing it. That's how the boomerang is being formed. And then inside the trapeze, again, we are looking at the inner energies. There are 2 trapezes. One is a fixed water trapeze, Moon, Saturn, Haumea. Here, these are regular, not trapeze, sorry, engines. So these are regular engines. You have a square, a trine, and a quincunx. So you have, with fixed water, you have the Saturn Haumea trine. and you have the Moon-Haumer square. That's how the engine is put together. And the other one is the mutable Wouter engine with the Saturn-Sedna mutable square, and again the same trine. So this is how you can form it. And actually, if you go back and take a look, you can see these two engines here, one and the other one. They have the same base. The trine is the same. Okay. And if we still look, because we still haven't touched Manve, so let's take a look at Manve, what happens there. And I left here the little engine because that was the starting point of the whole video. And here Manve is at the apex of a cardinal T-square, which is forming on the solstice and equinox points. Look at it. Arachne is at the summer solstice. Eurydice, Tantalus, and Hermes is at the winter solstice point, and Manve is at the equinox point. So actually, it's also the apex. So you have this cardinal tension, really. All these points, the cardinal points, are very prominent in astrology because they signify or herald something new, completely new. So let's take a look at what is Manve. If you have read Tolkien's Silmarillion, then you will know who he is in mythology. But anyhow, Manve is a TNO with an orbital period of 288 years. So it's in the outer Kuiper belt. And it's named after Manve in the Silmarillion, who is the king of the Valar. And the Valar are funny creatures who don't have a physical body, who are they're godlike, but not exactly gods. If you remember the story, I've read it decades ago. And I seem to remember that there were 8 of them, but I might be mistaken. Sorry about that. But anyhow, I didn't have time to reread it. But anyhow, what signifies, what is important here is that he is a godlike figure. He rules the skies, the clouds, the birds, and the birds are actually his servants. And of course, he is the wife of Varda. And when you want to delineate astrologically, Manve represents the potential to rule the sky, the air, and the clouds and the birds. There are people who can talk to birds. There are people who can dismiss clouds or create clouds or create or change the weather pattern. That's very prominent when you have Manve there. And it also denotes the ability to link up with the higher realms, higher dimensions. And also it could you could develop the ability of astral projection or astral travel. And the motto I gave Manve is, my imagination takes me everywhere I want. So this is what we are going to do. Every time there's a TNO prominent, I'm trying to give you some kind of understanding how we use it in karmic astrology. I used to do whole videos on newly discovered and named TNOs and centaurs, and I probably will continue it, but until then, this is how I can teach you how to use it. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.